In today's segment, I want to talk about Paul George and what we should expect from him this upcoming season without Kawhi Leonard. Before we get into that, though, please like, subscribe, also hit the notification bell so you can get the newest and the bonus content first. We put out content every day, so you won't miss any content here. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. Now, Paul George this past season had put up 23 points a game with 6 rebounds a game and close to 5 assists. Now, when you look at those numbers, those are really, really good numbers, especially those are star numbers. I mean, star player type numbers. And the bounce back season I thought he had, with the Clippers this season prior to the season before that was really good. I thought Paul George played a lot better, and I thought he played like the Paul George that a lot of people expected him to be or see the first year with the Clippers when they imploded in the bubble. And he came back with a little bit more edge to him. He came back with a little bit more of a grit and grind to him a little bit. And I feel like, just being around Kawhi Leonard, somebody like that, somebody in his ear telling him certain things, mentoring him in certain ways that he might not have, looked at certain things to help his career and help him play to another level. I feel like being around somebody like that really benefited Paul George the most. And this upcoming season, without Kawhi being around for a while, the expectation for Paul George is pretty much going to be the same that it was in the postseason after Kawhi Leonard exited the postseason with an injury. Now, the good thing is we do know, or should I say we've heard, that Kawhi Leonard's injury isn't that severe or, it wasn't that bad of a tear in regards to ACL, but it is still an ACL. And I do understand if Kawhi does stay out most, if all the season, just to get himself 100% healthy so he can be ready to go for the playoffs or for the next season. But we definitely hope that Kawhi Leonard makes a decision and be healthy enough to come back right before, maybe a month or something like that before the playoffs start, so he can get a rhythm and come back and help the team make another run at the championship. Now, as far as Paul George, what we should expect from a player like Paul George is playoff P type mode. That's what we should expect from him. We should expect that from him all season long. And not only that, I want to get into something else too that we should expect from Paul George. But as far as playoff P, he should have that mentality the whole year. He should have that mentality of going out there and putting the team on his back for a while until the best player comes back and keep them afloat. I mean, I think Paul George is good enough to help this team get to a decent seed in the playoffs. Even if it's the 5th or 6th seed or 7th seed or something like that, Paul George is good enough to get them in that realm, in that circumference right there. Now, if he gets them higher and, anything like that, of course, that's a plus. You definitely don't want to rule that out. But I think he's good enough to help lead this team to at least get them like a 6 or 7 seed in the Western Conference. Now, I know the Western Conference is loaded. You got the Nuggets with Jokic and Murray. You're going to have the Phoenix Suns come back with Chris Paul and, Devin Booker. Luka's still around, and the Lakers are definitely, trying to trend upward. Whether they are or not, who knows? But, hey, that's a different story for a different topic, different day. But at the same time, there's a lot of competition in the West. And with that being said, Paul George is going to have to play like playoff P, or as he proclaims, playoff P is, his alter ego that goes out there and play a certain way. And I will give him credit. Last year in the playoffs, he played like playoff P, or the playoff P that he always wanted us to envision him as. So when I say playoff P, I expect him to go out there and play with his back against the wall and play like every game is a playoff game. Play every game like it's your last. Play every game like you're fighting for the best seed you can to put your team in the playoffs, because a lot of people and a lot of media naysayers are going to sit there and try to diminish every little thing that you're doing. Oh, he's not going to help the team make the playoffs. He's not going to get them, to the playoff because he can't do this and can't do that. And he's not a superstar. He's not this. It's going to be even more hatred towards the Clippers and more doubting simply because Kawhi Leonard isn't there. But I feel like, Paul George should use that as motivation to help, uplift the team and keep them going until they can get Kawhi Leonard back. Because I think when they get him back, I think they'll really make a run at it. But my main thing is I wanted to say in regards to what we should expect from Paul George, we should expect an MVP caliber type season. We should expect, now if he averaged 23.3 points a game last year, he should average 27 points a game this year. He should be somewhere around that range, because now you're looking at him as a focal point of the offense, and he's definitely good enough to help this team, play to a high level, because they're a really, really deep team. They're not a team that's not deep. They're not a team that doesn't have talent. They have talent all across the bench. I mean, they are loaded as a team. And like I said, when they get Kawhi Leonard back, hopefully he comes back, at least, 90% of what he was, now you're cooking. Now you got something going. But my thing is, it's going to come down to, can Paul George sustain success in the regular season to get them opportunities to at least be a team that's locked into the playoffs? Because I'm telling you, one thing you don't want the Clippers to be in like some play-in tournament or something like that, and they fall and slip in the tournament and don't make the playoffs somehow, because that can definitely happen with, Adam Silver making this play-in tournament, an ongoing thing seem like. So especially, since I think Adam Silver's trying to make this something that's permanent going forward. So you don't want to find yourself in that position. You want to find yourself in a position where you can play at your best and be locked into the playoffs. And I think Paul George can definitely do that. And I think that's something that, a lot of Clippers fans should expect from Paul George. Now, I wanted to talk about also, this past season with Paul George, when you look at his game and why we should expect these things from him, because this past season, when I looked at Paul George, if I had to grade his season, I would give Paul George probably a B- this past season, because I feel like he came out with an edge, opening night, against the Lakers. He played really well. He played really well throughout the season. Even when Kawhi got hurt a little bit throughout the season, he still carried the load. And what he did in the playoffs, showing us that playoff P can be a real figure and can play to a certain level. And of course, he did make some mistakes that I criticized him for and stuff like that. But I mean, criticism is sometimes a good thing. It's not always a bad thing. A lot of people look at it that way, but really that's not the way to view it. Sometimes criticism is really good because it helps bring out the best in players. If players hear what naysayers are saying or what somebody is saying about them and really mean it in a good way, and trying to criticize them in a good way to help them play better. And I feel like a lot of the negativity that Paul George heard, throughout the bubble situation and going forward, really shaped him into a little bit of a better player. Because this past season, I gave him a B- because I saw a player who was more determined, who looked like he was playing for something, not a player that's on OKC or one of the other teams he played for, looking like he playing for a paycheck. Because and that's just the way it looked to me after a while. Paul George had his moments, but if you're not going to show up in the playoffs and put up good numbers like a team needs you to, like the way he did this season in the playoffs, minus some of the miscues he did have in the playoffs this season as well. But for the most part, he played pretty damn good, and if he would have played that way, his whole career, rather than just in Indiana and on the Clippers, his career would be looked at a whole lot different, because the year or two in OKC, a lot of people just threw those years away. And the back end of, I guess, him of being on Indiana, some people threw them years away too. I'm not exactly sure, but this is what I'm saying. The way he played last year, he should have been playing like this all along. But I'm glad he had that edge to him last season. And the way he played last regular season going into the playoffs, I thought it was really good. And I thought it was good for his career to show up in the playoffs some and say, hey, I am playoff P. I can play to this type level if needed or if I'm called upon. Of course, he's going to make mistakes because he's not a top 3 or top 5 player like Kawhi Leonard is, but he is, in most people's minds, a top 10 player. So if you're in that stature, you're good enough to help lead a team. So we should expect him to lead a team as much as he can to get them in the playoffs this upcoming season. Now, another thing I want to piggyback on with last season, I saw a difference in his game in regards to him being aggressive, because I've seen him be aggressive way back in the day with Indiana, but I haven't seen it throughout, the last couple years. The first year with the Clippers, he was, hurt a lot. So I can't really, harp on that. But just looking at the bubble, he wasn't really as aggressive, and he didn't have the right mindset, I thought, going into the bubble. And of course, we know his anxiety issues was an issue because he stated that. But at the same time, when I saw him on OKC, I didn't see the aggressiveness. I didn't see the go-getter mentality. I didn't see none of that. I didn't see the, I'm on mentality. I didn't see that. But I saw that this past season with Paul George, and I was really impressed by that. And I really thought, him and Kawhi Leonard had something going, because if he could take that into the playoffs, in which he did, they really was a formidable team to win it all. And they were, until Kawhi got hurt. So, it's a lot that goes into that. And I definitely respect that, coming from Paul George. I love him playing with more of an edge and intensity and aggressiveness. I like that. And we need to see more of that from Paul George. And because that's exactly what the Clippers are going to need, especially with Kawhi Leonard not being there. So last year, I really appreciated his game. And I feel like that's something we should expect this year. We should expect him to help carry this team this year. And like I said, averaging 23.3 with 6.6 rebounds last year was really good. But this year, we should expect him to ramp it up a little bit more, just until Kawhi Leonard comes back, so the Clippers can keep afloat. And that's really all that needs to be expected from, Paul George and his season, and how he played, and, how he should be playing going forward. And what they expected him going forward is, definitely formidable for him to live up to, I think, because he definitely has the talent and the capability. He just has to keep doing it consistently. If he wants to be a Hall of Fame player, which I know in his mind and his heart he does, he has to do this consistently. What he did in the playoffs when Kawhi got hurt, he picked it up. He stepped it up. And he did make a mistake in the Suns series by missing those 2 free throws, and I criticize him for that. But for the most part, he stepped it up, and that's the Paul George they're going to need going forward, and that's the Paul George they should expect him to be going forward. Nothing else, nothing less. Be who you're supposed to be and help drive this team until the superstar, the best player on the team, comes back. So now we could put it all together and make a real run this time, because to me, these next 2 years is the season is the 2 seasons that the Clippers need to try to win it. These next 2 seasons is the Clippers' window of winning a championship, because you got an older Lakers team who you can compete with, and that you can beat. You got these other teams in the West that are getting better. And I'm telling you, you don't want to wait until Jokic gets even better than what he is, even though he's an MVP caliber type player. But he's going to get better as he keeps going. Same with Jamal Murray. Same with Devin Booker. Same with Luka Doncic. You don't want to wait till they hit their peak to try to sit there and make a run. You want to try to sit there and make a run now, while they're not exactly at that superior level or elite level, of winning championships right now. This is when you want to strike while it's hot. You want to, make a move now as much as you can. So to me, these next 2 seasons are the Clippers' window of winning a championship, because after that, it'll be going in the 3rd season of Kawhi Leonard's contract. And who knows whether he'll come back if he doesn't see the team, getting to a certain point, at least making it to a finals within the next 2 years has to be the one of the goals, or one of the primary goals of the Clippers. They definitely need to win one, of course, in my mind, but they definitely even more so need to make the NBA finals within the next 2 years. Definitely, because this is their window and this is their opportunity to do it. So they definitely should look into that and definitely make that a priority, and definitely find a way, if they can, possibly, to keep everybody as healthy as they can, keep everybody gelling as much as they can, because after these next 2 seasons, you don't know whether you're going to have Reggie Jackson. He signed a 2-year, $22 million contract. Then Marcus Morris will be probably up for another contract. And then, Kawhi Leonard, of course, he'll have one more season after that. that. But, one more season with your best player, who knows where Paul George contract situation will be within 2 years. So it's like these next 2 years are vital, critical, very important for the Clippers to make a move and make a run and make it happen. But hey, that's my take on everything. Just talking about the whole situation and what should we expect from Paul George and, how his season was last year. So I gave a grade on his season last year. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I expect his grade this year to be around the same, a B minus. Well, really, to be honest with you, I expect his season to be a B plus season instead of a B minus season. So instead of 23.3 points a game, maybe average 26.7 a game, like that, close to 27 points a game. So I expect that coming from Paul George this season. But that's my grade I put on him and what I expect from him. But let me know what you think in the comment section of, what his grade was last year, what you think his grade will be this year, and, what you expect of Paul George, with Kawhi Leonard being out. And hey, till next time, Khaliis out.